Back with another one, chatting all things Tottenham, we're second to none. Special guests every time, if it's win, lose or draw. The passion is high like Harry Kane when he scores, or when Lloris makes a world-class save. We got Højbjerg running the mid every game. Settle down, stick around, share your thoughts with the panel, and make sure you're subscribing to the channel, cause...
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hollie's Hotspurs Live, where once again it's another Monday therapy session because Spurs have lost our last home game of the season to Forest 3-1. With me tonight, as I said, everything that happened, and my word, we've got a lot to discuss. I am joined by three fabulous guests. So first of all, we are joined by Mitch once again. Mitch, it's so great to have you on. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, good. Not too bad. I think by the sounds of what you were talking about before the show started, I think a few of you had a bit of a rough weekend or a rough Sunday at least. So I don't think I was in that boat. I wasn't at the game, but yeah. In terms of normal life, I'm all good. In terms of Spurs life, I think I'm in the same boat as everybody else at the moment.
Yeah, it's a bit rough. We won't go into detail how rough I was at the weekend. Moving swiftly on to Wes. Wes, how are you, my friend? Welcome on.
Yeah, all good, thank you. Super sub duties once again, Hollie. Just make sure that you get me booked in properly, please, next time. That would be lovely. But no, I am all good and ready for a therapy session. Honestly,
I promise this time we can all thank Jay for bailing, and that's why you were super sub this week. But no, it's good to have you on, and I promise next season, Wes, I'll get you on properly. And I'm joined by Connor. Connor, how are you on this fine Monday?
Yeah, I'm good. Bar everything to do with Spurs. Less rough than Saturday night, Sunday morning. But you know what? That level of rough was better than I feel about Spurs. So I'll take that any day at the minute, to be honest. But yeah, I'm good. Happy to be back. It's always good fun.
No, good. And welcome to everybody else that's joining the chat right now. Darren's in nice and early. Welcome, my friend. So let's kick this off. Because I don't know about you, Mitch. Before the game, I was kind of feeling a little bit hopeful. I know that Forest obviously have been doing things recently, but there was no Tony. So I was thinking, could be all right. I mean, how were you kind of thinking before the game kicked off?
Yeah, I looked at the last three games of the season: Villa away, home to Brentford, and Leeds away, and I was sort of like, Brentford's the one really that I was most confident for. And I think first half was really good. And then I think we saw a bit of a Tottenham that we've been used to for most of the season in the second half. But I mean, before any game against, and no disrespect to Brentford here, it's a game at home, and you're still pushing to try and get yourself into the Europa League or Conference League or whatever. It's something that you'd expect the players to be up for. Last home game of the season, so players naturally you'd hope would want to put on a bit of a show for the fans. So in all senses, there I was confident, but I clearly haven't learnt my lesson this season, and we were disappointed again. So yeah, I mean, it's the levels of enthusiasm and excitement when it comes to watching them this season are sort of a bit of an all-time low for me personally. So I'm not expecting too much on Sunday either. But yeah, it was just one of those, wasn't it, where it was a bit like, you play really well in the first half, you don't take your chances to go 2 or 3-0 up like we should have done, and then they come out and score early in the second half, and you're like, right, well, we all know how this is going to finish. So yeah, for me it was just a bit of the same old story, really.
It was, and I was really gutted because, Wes, I don't know about you, when I saw Danjuma was free and he was starting, I was like, oh my days, it's the time. But it didn't come off for us, did it?
You say that, but again, I think, alluding to a bit what Mitch said there about the first half, we played some really, really good football. There was some lovely link-up play, with the front three sort of in behind Kane with Danjuma, Kulusevski and Son. I think there was a lovely sort of 1-2 with Son and Kulusevski where Kuli's like flicked it and you're thinking, yeah, this is nice. I think potentially in terms of switching it up, you'd have probably put Richie on to have him through the middle. I think Glenn Hoddle mentioned it actually after the Milan game, like, why don't we go 4-2-3-1, have Kane as our 10 who's going to drop in anyway, and then he's got that capability and freedom to sort of go where he wants, and then stick Richarlison up top who can then look to go in behind and stretch the game. But no, I think Mitch summed it up brilliantly. I think first half we were really, really good. Probably should have had a couple more goals. I think there's the Son chance which he hit straight at David Raya. I think the Son of last season slots that to the side of him as opposed to trying to hit through the ball. But yeah, second half, it was just a case of switching off again. And it's like, after the first one, you think, right, here we go, let's try and calm down and sort ourselves out a little bit. And then the second one goes in, you're thinking, geez, like, come on, sort it out. And then I think the last one, we're sort of chasing our tail a little bit. Yeah, Skippy gets caught. And, in the Premier League, if you get caught on the ball, and you make a mistake, you're going to get punished. And that was a bit unfortunate, I think, for Skip, because I think on the whole, I didn't think he had a bad game either. I think between him and Basuma, they played really, really well together. But yeah, I think it was just a bit unfortunate that it kind of unfolded for us in the way that it did on Saturday.
No, I'm glad you've mentioned obviously Skip and Basuma, because Connor, there's been many weeks where we talk about the likes of Skip and Højbjerg and the fact there isn't a lot of creativity from them anyway. But having Basuma, I thought, coming into the mix, for me, kind of took a bit of risk with it. He took the ball forward a lot more than I know. Obviously, in the first half, second half was two different games. But for me, did you feel that Basuma just added something else in that midfield for us?
Absolutely. And Basuma played a part in the confidence as well. I think, you can always admire Højbjerg's passion and fight, but quite a few of us have not wanted him in the team for a little while because he is infuriating to watch, giving the ball all the time. So it was, like you said, pre-game, you're thinking, you know what, he's changing the system here a little bit. He's even starting Sanchez. He's, it's different. Dan Juma's finally got his game. We could do something here, like it's written in the stars, surely. Like Mitch said, you're looking at those 3 games. You're not that hopeful at Villa. You're worried about final game of the season, Leeds, and you're going Brentford. That's the one, final home game of the season. Let's get the players up for it. You go one up, and you're thinking, this is it. We're gonna fly now. We were creating loads of chances. Sonny had obviously the 2, and then it just fell apart. So Basuma definitely offered that different dynamic, and he's not a player I would dig out from that performance. I thought considering he's spent so much of this season out injured, he's been really unlucky. I think he stepped up really well considering next to Skip. And Wes is spot on. Skip might have been caught out for the 3rd goal, but it doesn't mean he played bad. He's been arguably one of our most consistent players this season, but that does say a lot. But yeah, I think for them, it changed when they brought Damsgaard on, really. It just changed the whole intensity for them. But yeah, it's just same old, isn't it? Honestly.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, before we get on to the drips and drabs of the second half, I mean, Mitch, again, I didn't think Harry Kane had it in his locker. Yes, all right, it was a little pass from Kulu that obviously set it up for him. But to see the way that ball dipped from that free kick was insane.
Yeah, the man can do no wrong, really, can he? I think it was interesting. I think they've finally cottoned on that he can't hit a dead ball as well as he can a moving ball. So that little layoff for him to sort of strike it was ridiculous. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones that you could watch over and over and over again. The man, we think we've seen everything from Harry Kane, and then he goes and pulls out something special like that. And it's just a bit of a shame that goal and the 27 other goals this season in the Premier League don't really mean too much, which is just, a phenomenal record from a phenomenal player. And I really do hope he stays next season and can replicate the sort of form he's had with hopefully some better players and a better manager guiding him. But he again was probably the best player on the pitch for us. Especially in the first half, as he has been so many times for us this season. And it's a bit criminal that he's had a 28-goal season in the Prem and is still nowhere near the Golden Boot. But hey ho, we shall see what happens over the summer with him. And I think it was interesting with Kane actually, because I don't. If you think back to a couple of years ago and his little lap of honour around the pitch after the game, when he thought he was off to City, his sort of whole demeanour and emotion was very, very different, I thought, to what it was on Saturday. And, I think there's been some more quotes come out from him today about the future and again, wanting to sit down with the chairman and change the culture of the club and what goes on. So, yeah, I'm a little bit hopeful in that sense that wasn't the last goal Harry Kane has scored in front of a home crowd at Tottenham.
No, you make some valid points, and I think we all kind of hope the same. I mean, Wes, we've had this chat loads of times, and the sense that does Kane stay, does he go? But I think what Mitch is saying there and alluding to, the fact that demeanour was different at the final whistle, does that, I don't want to say give you hope, because obviously we all want him to stay, but we also all want him to go and win something. So for you, do you think that's him saying, look, I'm staying, I want to commit something to this team, I want to win something with Spurs, but I need to be the one that changes it?
Well, I hope he does stay, because obviously he's just had a massive mural painted on the side of a pub in Tottenham, and he signed it. No, I'm of the opinion, and have been, that Harry Kane will stay at Tottenham. I think his opportunity and window to potentially leave has probably gone for him. I think there's a lot more factors that would lead to Harry Kane going. But I just can't see this. I want to say the stars aligning, but I just can't see that sort of happening in the sense of him leaving. I think people will look at it and go, "Well, this really now is his last chance to leave, if he was to leave." Is he going to do it or is he not? But I just think he's going to stay. I think, obviously his wife's pregnant with baby 4. They're getting a house built in Surrey. All these different factors are going to play a huge part, and I think he's probably earned the right to have those level of conversations with Daniel Levy about, like, right, what direction is this club going into? What culture are we going to have at the football club? We've not had one for 5 years. So, like, literally, he's got I wouldn't say he's got Daniel Levy where he wants him, but he's certainly in a good position to go, right, what is happening here? And what are you going to do as the chairman of the football club to progress the football club forwards? Are we getting a manager in who's here for the long term, who isn't going to be a quick fix or try to be a quick fix, in for a little bit and then dip out? I think as long as Kane can see that there is a little bit of a vision and a little bit of I wouldn't want to use the word project, but at least there's something for him to potentially hold on to. I don't want it to be like a 4 or 5 year project, because he's not going to probably see the fruits of that. It's got to be somebody that can come in and, I wouldn't say hit the ground running straight away, but just get everybody on side and make us as fans believe that we are capable of competing at the very top again, like we was not so long ago.
100%, and I think that is the real thing at the minute. I mean, there's a lot of discontent at full time, which I must say my ears are still bleeding from the music. But it just kind of shows you, Connor, that I don't want to say we're at a crossroads, but I feel with Kane at the helm and potentially talking to Levy and having these conversations, this might be the turning point for us.
I think so. I think, like Wes has sort of alluded to, I think the paths have narrowed quite a lot. When he was going to leave, it was very much that it'd have to be really to City that season. Beyond that, he's not going to go to City now, is he? I think the only other team you'd argue he could go to, because he wants to stay in the Prem and get that record, would maybe be United, because they're after a striker. But then are they going to look younger? Are they going to look for someone who, well, I mean, they can offer trophies, United, as well. They can. I know it's a League Cup, it's an FA Cup, but it's more than we can. And if that's what he wants to leave Spurs for, he's very well entitled to it, because he's good enough. He's given us so much, and it's painful and infuriating. And it's the mural's really nice, but it's infuriating that after all of this that's happened, or all these years of him giving, like Mitch said, 28 goals this season. It's nowhere near the Golden Boot. Take away his goals, we're a lot lower in the league. I think I saw something like he's got 61 goals in 91 games at the stadium. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, his record has just been insane. So it's infuriating that all he has is a mural. So I think Wes is right. I think it's looking more likely that he will. Well, Wes and Mitch are right. It's looking more likely that he will stay, but it's only because the paths have narrowed. If he hadn't been brought to this point here now, he would have left, and he'd have had every right to. But let's face it, he almost hasn't really got a choice, because he probably wants to go down with that legacy at Spurs. But, whether he'll get a statue or not, I mean, based on the record of this ownership, who knows? But yeah, I really want him to stay. But if he leaves, he deserves better anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the general consensus of every kind of Spurs fan, in the sense that we want him to stay because of what he does. And again, I swear I read something like we'd be relegation fodder if we didn't have Harry Kane this season. It's that bad. But yeah, I hope he stays. But again, I don't think anybody would begrudge him if he left. And obviously, half time comes, and Mitch, like we've kind of alluded to, it just all goes to pot. I think it's like the first 5 minutes we managed to concede, and I just don't know how that happens every week.
Because we're not very good. It's a pretty basic explanation of it, I guess. I mean, it's just getting caught out, isn't it? And it's a mix of the team not really being asked about it anymore this season. The fact that they've gone through a lot, they've had 3 different people in charge of them trying to fix things in Conte, Stellini, and Mason. None of which I would argue have worked. I mean, Mason's again probably been the best of the 3 with what he's tried to implement in terms of the style of football we've seen. But we just got caught out on too many occasions for their second goal, especially Ben Davies caught in no man's land. And when he's playing at left back and you're up against a player like Mbuemo with his pace, it just got punished very, very easily. And I just think that's the most frustrating thing. It's just there's no confidence from anyone behind that sort of front line, if you will. I think second half, especially the fact that Højbjerg was injured, so he wasn't on the bench. So you had to stick with. Well, I guess I think Sarr was on the bench, so he probably could have come on actually. But you could see towards the end of the game, Basuma's absolutely knackered, which we shouldn't be surprised about because he's played 90 minutes for the first time in a long time. Skip has played something like 13 or 14 matches in a row now, and he's not been used to that because first half of the season he was a bench player. You had your Højbjerg and Bentancur partnership. So tired legs. It has been a long season, but having said that, again, it's just not really any excuses. I don't think we had a shot on target in the second half until the 89th minute. With the Richarlison chance and David Raya's sort of double save that he made. It's just, I just think they're on beach mode, and I think unfortunately we're going to see it again on Sunday against Leeds. I would love for anyone to try and find a Spurs fan that thinks we're going to win on Sunday when Leeds have so much to play for. They're at home, their ground's going to be so up for it, and we've essentially got nothing to play for. It's just, again, it just comes back around to the whole disappointment. But when we look back on it, what else should we have really expected? They haven't given us any signs or any demonstrations to suggest that we can go out at the moment and beat a team comfortably. I think, when was the last time we really, really beat a team comfortably? It might have even been Everton.
Can't remember.
Or whoever it was that we beat quite comfortably in the end. But I can't remember the last time we just went out and won a game 3 or 4-0, and it was just lovely. You go 2 or 3-0 up and you think, oh, this is bliss. But yeah, not the case with us at the moment. And at least we've only got to watch it one more time.
That is kind of what I'm holding on to at the minute. The fact that I've only got to do one more therapy session as well. But obviously saying that, I mean, we talk about obviously the poor performances in the defence and things, and then obviously we know that the man Lucas Moura is obviously leaving Wes at the end of the season, and Mason thought it was a good time to bring him on for his testimonial. And at this point, you're kind of thinking, oh, you know what? Like Mitch has put perfectly, they're all on beach mode at the moment, so who cares at the moment?
Yeah, it was from a sentimental point of view, I guess. It was nice for Moura to get that sort of, I wouldn't even say recognition, because he didn't even get an opportunity to say bye at the end of the game, which I thought was really odd and really strange. I think probably had we had won, I think everybody would have probably been in a better mood. So, he might have had that opportunity, but seeing him at the end and on the lap of honour and stuff like that, or the lap of dishonour, as people call it when it comes to Spurs, he was emotional, like he's crying. And that kind of shows that he's had his moments where it's not obviously gone to plan. And this year, no more so than most, with the Everton red card and the pass that's obviously led to Liverpool's third goal. But you can see it means a lot to him, and he's fought and really cared about the football club. So you're sort of thinking as a fan, like, why can't we have more players like that, or have that level of, want and, that want to kind of die for the club a little bit. But yeah, it was nice to kind of see him. I don't actually think he did a lot, to be honest. He ran about a bit, got in Harry Kane's way a few times, off a couple of goal kicks and stuff like that. But yeah, like I say, from a sentimental point of view, it was nice that he was able to kind of get that goodbye and that farewell from the fans.
And don't get me wrong, I love Lucas Moura, and I know we always talk about that night in Ajax, but like you said, the sheer determination and want to wear that shirt, I think I haven't seen in a player for a very long time. It's just unfortunate that his career at Spurs has ended the way it has done, and the fact, like you say, those last couple of appearances he's had with the red card and stuff, you can't say, look, mate, come and jump on, especially, Connor, when you see that Danjuma comes off. And there was lots of people around me saying, why wasn't Decky coming off? And I thought Decky had a good game, but at that split time, I would have thought it would have been a different change.
I think, to be honest with you, the Danjuma sub makes sense because it's predictable, because he's had so many little minutes all season. It's very likely he'd be the one to come off, and that's what it is. I think, to be honest with you, being the final home game of the season, regardless of how the game had panned out, I wouldn't have had an issue with Lucas coming on. I mean, yeah, we were losing at that point, and arguably it would have been better to keep Kulu on. However, I think going forward in general, it was nice for Lucas to have that. And Wes is right. I mean, it was so sad at the end. He didn't get any sort of send off. And that's what this club's done this season. It's been so disappointing. There's been no sort of room for emotion. The only emotion, listen, the best thing we've had all season is Arsenal bottling the league. That is reflective of where our season is. So little moments like appreciating Lucas's final game and everything he's done for us as a club have been overshadowed by us being that disappointing. We've got off Arsenal bottling the league. So it's, I didn't have a problem with it, to be honest. And like Wes said, spot on. He was one of those players who was so proud, so happy to wear that shirt. And we have not had any who have really showed that consistently for a while. And it's sad that he's gone out the way he has. But again, people would argue that he's of that crop of players that aren't good enough anyway. We've hoarded all these players that aren't good enough. I could give you a list of about 5-6 of them that are still at the club that are not good enough. So he's part of that. The difference with Lucas is he's got the sentimental value of Amsterdam, and that he actually cares wearing the shirt. Ones like Dyer, and I'm not going to name them all, but ones like players like that who aren't good enough that are still here, they haven't got that. So yeah, I'm just more sad about how it ended for him, because there wasn't any emotional thing around the pitch. When they walked around the pitch, Harry was happy, but when they were doing the awards at the end, the Son's come out and collected his award. He's sad. Harry's come out and collected his award. He's sad. It's just a sad mood around the ground. So you can't appreciate that with Lucas leaving, just because of how sad it is for your final home game of the season to perform like that,
And I think the really annoying thing for me was, obviously, I'm going to hold my hands up and say I didn't watch the parade, because I had that feeling of I've had enough. Like, it's over now. I don't want to, not necessarily congratulate these players for having a mediocre season, but I've just washed my hands of it, if that makes sense. But Mitch, for me, the most sad thing about that was the fact that the women's game was after, and I felt if they would have won the game, more people may have stuck around.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it was a risk that the club took doing it, and I like the idea of it. I think it's a good incentive to get larger crowds for the women's game and get a bit more attention on them, especially considering the magnitude of the women's game, which was that if they won, they pretty much guaranteed safety in the WSL, which they did, and good for them. I'm really pleased for them. And they've had a tough season as well. They've got no manager at the moment as well, so they're not in too dissimilar situation to the men's. But I just really can't see a situation in which people would have wanted to stay, especially just with everything that's happened. And it's not just necessarily on the pitch stuff. It's the fact that we've still not, I guess we have a bit of an inkling of who's going to be the next manager, but nothing's been finalised. We still don't have a clue who's going to be the new sporting director, and also you've got little things that will just annoy people and make them think, well, why should I stay? You've just upped the One Hotspur memberships by 10-20% again, which is causing loads of people to cancel it, myself included. So why should we stay and spend the extra money on the food and drink in the stadium and stick around in a place that hasn't had too many happy memories for us at the moment? And like I said, it's a shame for the women's game, but I think hopefully it actually sends a bit of a message to the fellas up top. Well, fella and woman, I think we know the two people I'm talking about there. But we saw it. I watched the game from home, and it very frequently cut to Daniel Levy and his wife, and I think everybody's seen the clip of his wife giving him a little pat on the leg, looking a bit sympathetic towards him. But there's no sympathy from me there. It's just ridiculous, and I don't want to get into too much of a tangent about the whole thing because I could go on for hours and hours. But I would like to see the same sort of thing happen again, where you have that double header of men and women's team. But I think there's probably a bit of a time and a place for it when the men's team are in a bit of a better place.
Yeah. 100%. I think that's the best way to put it. Like you said, I think it's a great scheme. And I always remember going to the first women's football weekend and seeing Tottenham like packed pretty much to the fact that I've never seen a women's game before. So it is a really good incentive. It's just the timing of things at the minute just wasn't great. But Wes, obviously, we've spoken a little bit about the frustrations with the board with what Mitch has said, but it is true. I think everybody's getting to that realization that, hang on a minute, this is not quite right, especially when Mitch mentioned, obviously, they've froze the season tickets, but then have upped the memberships. Like what they've lost here, they've then put here. So it's just a real frustration for everybody at the moment.
Yeah, can we not talk about the women's game? Because it's actually all right, to be fair. I was watching it as well, going, just a quick point on that. I was watching it and thinking, right, well, the women's have got an interim head coach. The men's have an interim head coach. The difference was that I saw on Saturday was that the women had a style of play and had, you see patterns of play. And I'm thinking, right, okay, I can get behind this. The men, absolutely clueless, genuinely clueless. But you're looking at it and going, well, there's two people in a role which is effectively the same, working in a high performance sort of environment. Yet one's got an identity and a style of play that you can see quite clearly. And the other one, it's, just hasn't got a clue. And it was refreshing to see it from the women's point of view, but obviously a bit damning then, when you go to the men's. But yeah, going back to your point on, season ticket prices and things like that. Listen, Levy gets his money one way or another, doesn't he? People will go, well, he's frozen this one. Oh, that's wicked. Yeah, but he's going to get you in another way. And I think if he doesn't get you with the whole memberships or the season ticket kind of thing, he'll get you with food and drink in the ground. And things like that. So listen, he gets his money, one way or another. It's just how it's portrayed or marketed, however you want to put it. He's a very shrewd businessman, and I don't think anybody can take away him as a businessman because he's done a lot of good things business-wise. That's the commercial side of the football club. The football business side and the football element of his job is very, very questionable, especially in the last 5 years or so, where somebody like myself, who wasn't necessarily a Levy outer at all, it was, okay, look at what he has done for us, is now gone to, do you know what, mate, you've had your run, probably time to step aside and either let somebody else come in, or you do what competent people do at the top and they get football people to run the football. And you're seeing that with the likes of Brentford in particular, Villa, Brighton, Newcastle. They've got, and obviously a lot more in the big six. But again, you've got, clubs who are ahead of us in the league that really shouldn't be, but they are, because they've just got the right people in at the right level to deal with all the football operations. And it's kind of a case of like, with the owners and things like that, like, if you need me, just give me an email or give me a call. I'll let you crack on, kind of thing. And I think, there's probably no better example of that than perhaps Newcastle at the minute. Obviously, they've got Dan Ashworth, sporting director, in there, a man who's really, really well connected. But it's one of those where he just probably says to Amanda Stavely or whatever, like, or she says to him, like, if you need me, just call me, or, just send me an email. But as for you, you crack on and do what you got to do. And if you need a player, we'll be in touch, type of thing. That's literally all an owner or a chairman has to do, really. Don't need to get involved with the football side too much, like Mr. Levy.
But that's the trouble, isn't it? Because Connor, we've been here before where we had a sporting director, and it just doesn't work because he likes to get his fingers in. I mean, we've said obviously that a manager doesn't necessarily want to come before we fix that issue. I mean, for you, is that kind of what you hope as well, in a sense that we get that sporting director in, and hopefully this time, after all of the bad press and things that are going on at Spurs at the moment, that he actually finally listens and steps back?
I mean, you'd like to think so. You'd think after all these years of messing around, you'd finally actually just go, okay, let's bring a sporting director in and let them actually crack on with the job. I mean, we keep saying about this Scott Munn guy. Where is he? He doesn't start till July. I mean, what's the plan in that? So you're literally writing off the rest of the season to then let him start in the July. It's laughable that as a football club, I mean, I've made the joke that, you know, we're Tottenham Hotspur Music Club, we're Tottenham Hotspur Events Club. We are, and you have to respect that. You have to expect, like Wes said, how he runs it as a business. And they've done so much for us in terms of the stadium, in terms of everything else, in terms of elevating us potentially, well, to a top 4 team, no longer a top 4 team. But they've done a lot. So we can respect that. But like Wes said, there's a level that there is a level you got to look at, and you got to look at it and say, get football people in doing football, you know, because you have teams like Brighton overtaking us because they are well run, because they know what they want to do. And unfortunately, we have no plan. There's been, and you know, we'll go to Jay's best mate. There literally has been no plan since Pochettino was sacked. It was, let's bring Mourinho in, but let's not let Mourinho do what he wants to do. Let's bring Nuno in without a plan, because it takes us 80 odd days or whatever it is, I don't know, to bring him in and then sack him. Let's finally get Conte in, and then let's sack him as well. I mean, even appointing Paratici, you must have known when you appointed him that there was that hanging over him. You must have, surely there must have been an inkling that there were criminal charges coming. And that, again, is what makes our club so funny when all these things happen, because you think it only happens at Tottenham. It would not happen at anywhere else. It's always at Tottenham that this stuff happens at. So yeah, no, you'd like to think so, that it would change, but I'm not hopeful of it changing because Mr. Levy loves getting involved. So yeah, it's just
pretty much it.
Just a mess, honestly. Oh, just deflating.
No, it is. And I think that's the thing that's always sat not well with me, is the fact that we're so reactive rather than proactive. And like you said, we always find these hiccups along the way because we don't sort that out first. We think, oh, I'll be all right. And then we get sussed out. But obviously saying that, Mitch, we are looking to get a new manager in. Obviously, Nagelsmann's floated about. Obviously, that looks like it's probably sailed. But the big one is the slot machine. Now, Mitch, how are you thinking of Arne Slot if it does go through?
Yeah, I think he was probably in most people's top 3 candidates when we sort of got that original list of names of managers that could take over. I think if you consider it at the point when Nagelsmann did get sacked and he was available, I think most people's choices were, well, maybe top 4 would have been Nagelsmann, Poch, Slot, and Enrique. For the majority, obviously, there's other people there that people are interested in, but Nagelsmann, for obvious sporting director reasons, clearly doesn't look like it's going to happen because he wants to say in who we appoint, and I don't think Daniel Levy wants to appoint who Nagelsmann wants, so that's sort of not there. Obviously, we know what's happening with Poch, as painful as it is. Enrique would be going down the route of the Mourinho, Conte sort of thing, sort of bringing in a big name, and although he does play a more attacking style of football, it's a bit of a risk again. And I think the general consensus is that Daniel Levy wants to go for a bit more of a progressive manager, one who's going to be in it for the long haul, sort of more of an up and coming manager. And I think Arne Slot ticks all of those boxes. What he's done with Feyenoord this season has been brilliant, albeit Ajax haven't been on their regular game. They're really struggling still since letting Ten Hag go to United. But regardless, Feyenoord have won the league at a canter over there. They were unlucky to be knocked out of the Europa League by Roma, I believe it was. And they play very good football. And I think the more I think about it and the more I research it and do some writing on it, the more I'm coming around to the idea. I think he quite likes the 4-2-3-1 formation, which is one that we played a lot under Pochettino. So it's not necessarily unfamiliar to some of the players. And I think it would be one that unites the fan base somewhat. I don't see too many people out and about and on Twitter and stuff that really, really hate the idea of bringing him in. I know people have other preferences, but I don't think it would be an awful appointment. So, I mean, by the looks of it, there's meetings scheduled with him and his agents this week. We're going to have to pay a bit of compensation for him, but it's around the region of 5 or 6 million. And hopefully we can just get it done now in the next couple of weeks, get sporting director sorted, manager in, work on signings, getting rid of the players that we need to get rid of. And just, we need to now get on to next season as quickly as possible if we want to have any chance of trying to push back towards that top four, just purely because you have a look at the teams around us. Obviously, Newcastle will be up there again next season. Aston Villa look like they're a very, very good team under Unai Emery and will strengthen. Liverpool and Chelsea are going to be much better next season, you would think. So it's going to be a really, really tough league next year, and we need to be prepared for it. And if Arne Slot's the man to come in and try and help us progress and go forward, then it needs doing. And I know we say this for every single manager, but he's one that we need to get behind and show some support towards. And let's see how long it lasts if it does happen.
I was going to say, because we're very, very impatient at the moment. I mean, I'm putting my hands up as well. I'm very impatient, but I think to myself, I can't keep going around in circles. I mean, Wes, it has come out that good old Rafa van der Vaart has given the green light for him. So that makes you feel a little bit better as well.
Yeah, I don't know if Rafa's after a job or whatever, but I think, who knows, if Arne is in, he might want somebody there that he potentially might know, the Dutch connection, but somebody that also understands the club. So I think Ten Hag has done that, obviously, at United. He brought in Steve McLaren, obviously knows Man United really well. I think, there's other managers that do similar as well, just to get somebody in that understands the football club a little bit better, just to help them as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about Arne Slot, I have to say, but from what I've heard recently, I think it's an appointment that won't necessarily excite too many. I think those that are a bit more knowledgeable will probably be a bit more excited, but I think the average football fan or the average Tottenham fan, I don't think will be as excited as potentially getting a Poch or a Nagelsmann. But having said that, look, we all said that majority weren't all favourable of Poch coming in, and look at the work he did there. But yeah, from what I've read and from what I've heard, he's a man that plays on the front foot, presses really high up the pitch, likes to dominate games, wants the ball, has to have the ball pretty much all the time. And I mean, if he brings the goalkeeper from Feyenoord with him, I'm not going to complain because the goalkeeper's pretty decent. So yeah, listen, I am always of the opinion that, whoever comes in as manager, whether I'm agreeing with it or not, I'll give him a chance because they have to get the chance, I think, to succeed. But I'm a bit with the idea of this whole sporting director thing, like, where are we as a football club getting off of the fact that we have to have a sporting director? Harry Redknapp's best work at Tottenham was when he didn't have anybody interfering. AVB, believe it or not, his best work at Spurs, and you look at the transfer window he had without Franco Baldini, he signed Lloris, Vertonghen, Sigurdsson, Dempsey, and the greatest of all time. Do you know what I mean? There's 5 players there that you look at and go, well, Jan gave us great service. Hugo has given us good service. Moussa Dembele is the greatest of all time. Sigurdsson was a decent player for us. Dempsey popped up with the odd goal here and there. So, again, Poch's best work was when he didn't have anybody above him sort of, interfering and things like that. So it's quite strange that, the managers that we've had, when they haven't had a sporting director or director of football, have actually probably done better than when we have had one in. But I think it's one of those where I think we're having to go down that route. And yeah, listen, if it is Arne, like I said, I'll give him a chance and I'll back him, and I'll sing his name, when I go to games and things like that. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how it works, what type of manager he will be in the Premier League, because it's one thing doing it in the Eredivisie, and it's another doing it in the Premier League. But yeah, I don't know if he's going to come in and ruffle a few feathers. I don't think he's a yes man. I've never met a Dutch person that is a yes man. They are quite feisty in the sense of, they will want certain things. And I think, and it's not a case of they kick off when they don't get them, but they are very headstrong and strong-minded people. So yeah, I think, if it is Arne Slot, then let's get behind it and let's try and produce a team that the fans can get behind again. I think that's the key. I think
we just need the identity back. And Connor, do you think that Slot is the man to instill that once again at Spurs?
He's got a slot of work to do.
Yeah.
I think alluded to what Mitch said. I think he's right in terms of it being more of a project if he comes in, and that's what we need. You know, we've moved between Mourinho and Conte, and it clashes a lot with Levy. That's not going to work. I'm sold on what Wes said. Wes is basically giving me the whole lowdown. I'm sold on Slot straight away. 100%. No, I think it's not the most exciting of appointments, but I think in general, in terms of who we can attract, I'm favourable towards it. I like it. I think the only thing is actually just letting him look at that squad and letting him make the changes, letting him do the work. You know, because there are a lot of players there that we do need to get rid of. So I don't want another situation where we bring another manager in and there's these players that again are not good enough, and he's still got to work with them because we've had three. I like that. We've had three. Well, we've had three in charge this season, and all right, okay, two of them are interims, but it shows you that the players aren't good enough. I know interims going to do so much work, but there are so many players in that team that are not good enough. So if Slot comes in, I want him to have the power to say, you're not good enough. I want to move you on. I want to bring in my players. I want to do that. Because if he is limited to working with what he's got, we're not going to achieve anything. Again, I will say it over and over. You could bring Klopp or Pep here. I still don't think with this current crop, you achieve arguably more than Conte was achieving personally. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the puns that he'll bring within. I'm looking forward to the excitement. I'm buzzed for it. And, listen, one of our favourite managers, Martin Jol, was Dutch. He knew what he was doing. I'll have a Dutchman who knows what he's doing, without a doubt. Yeah, I'm excited. If it goes through and if he's given the power, then yes.
And I think, like we all know, that them at the top don't really have much of a leg left to stand off if they want to be on the best side of us fans at the moment. So it will be interesting to see whether it goes through. Like Mitch mentioned, I think that talk is supposed to happen on Wednesday. So we've got to all have our fingers crossed for then that something is done. But before all of that, obviously, we do play Leeds on Sunday. And I know, Mitch, you've spoken a little bit about it. So for you, is it more like, let's get these 90 minutes over and done with, please?
Yeah, do you know the bad thing is about it? I think we're going to be on TV because I remember watching the Spurs game on Saturday. BT were like, "I'm not sure. We're not sure where we're going to be yet because we're waiting for things to play out." And obviously, I think the main thing is, do Leicester go down if they lose tonight? They do go down if they lose.
I'm not sure because I think they can still. I think if they win, for example, tonight, they can still catch Everton. So I think it might depend on goal difference.
So regardless, it's going to be likely the Leeds Spurs because there's still technically an outside chance if we win that we can get Conference League if Villa lose to Brighton as well. So you'd think that the Leeds Spurs game is going to be the one on TV, which makes me almost think I have to watch it. Not sure if it's how I want to spend my Sunday afternoon. But, regardless, I think it's... If I'm Ryan Mason, I just play some of the youngsters. I mean, you've got people like Romain Mundle who he's not signing a new contract at the moment because he's not been given any first team opportunities, and you've got the youngsters, Alfie Devine and people like that. I just feel like Sunday would be the perfect opportunity to give them some minutes, give them a run out, and they deserve that at least. After the year everyone's had, no one's been spectacular apart from probably Kane and Bentancur are the two standouts. So yeah, I don't think it's one that I'll watch, and if we do lose, I'll be upset too much about. If we win, great. It might not matter anyway. If we win and get Conference League, great. But it's not really a big deal personally to me. So yeah, it's the end of the season, so you'd like to think that the boys at least will want to end it with a win. But it's just going to be a horrible game because I can't see Leeds just not being at our throats for the entire 90 minutes. But we'll see. You never know. Kane might hit 2 and get 30 for the season, which would be lovely to see as well.
No, it would be. And I think that's the thing. I think I'm just it's weird because normally I'm like, that means I'm not going to have any Tottenham for so many months. And now it's going to be, I can't wait for the freedom. But Wes, there's some mad people that are actually going to the game. And I think that might be you. So how are you looking forward to it? Or should I say not looking forward to it?
Well, I was. And then Mitch has literally crushed the shattered dreams tonight. I think it's I'm mad, to be honest. But Ellen Road is a ground, it's one of the most historic grounds, I think, in English football. And I've not actually been there for a game. So it was always one on my bucket list to kind of go to. I have been there for other things, but to see a football game was one, again, like I said, on my bucket list. And yeah, I think it's likely that we are going to be on TV as well. And I think, why don't we try and go out with a little bit of a bang? I can't particularly see it too often because our away form is absolutely horrendous. But listen, that's not going to stop me.
Horrendous.
Well, there is that as well, but our away form is even worse than the home form. But yeah, I think, let's try and give the fans a little bit of something to go away from this and go like, right, well, at least we've ended the season on a high with a victory, which obviously would send Leeds down as well. But yeah, I will be there. I will be singing loud and proud and things like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If the football's bad, I'll just I'll have a few maybe a few alcoholic beverages to soften the blow, because it's a bank holiday Monday the next day, so I have that freedom and that choice for a change.
Yeah, just don't do me, whatever you do. But Connor, how about you as well, my friend? Like, in terms of how big this game is for Leeds, it could potentially be, well, it is going to be a tough game for us anyway, but it's going to be added tough, if that makes sense.
Without a doubt, Leeds, Big Sam, I've said it since he's come in. It's got Leeds 1-0 written all over it, to be honest. I think it's pure. We are probably the best team to come up against final day, really. I mean, I know we have the Conference League to play for, and Leeds were horrendous against West Ham. So, they're not in a good shape themselves, but, like Wes said, historic ground, Ellen Road, they all come together. They live and breathe football there. So it's a very tough one for us. I think I want us to win. I personally do want Conference League. I want any sort of Europe, just to give us a sort of more hope next season of disappointing us even more. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really big ask, to be honest. And I think Mitch is right. I think it's the sort of game where you'd like to think you could play some of the youngsters, but I don't know. I honestly do not know. All I do know is that it'll probably be a Leeds win, and it'll probably cap off a really poor season. And I can't wait for the summer to not have to worry about Spurs for a couple of months, honestly. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, it's a bit of a downer, but this season has just deflated all of us. So, yeah, I'm not confident.
No, I don't think I am either. And I think that's the real thing for me. I said, even before we were in the contention of dropping out of Europe, I was kind of like, if we want this whole restart to happen, all these people say, oh, but you need the pull of Europe. And I think to myself, but what has that pull of Europe actually done for us in recent years? I mean, Mitch, you kind of on the same thing. I know Connor says about that he wants European football and stuff. And I get it, because like I said, with Tottenham, we should be in European football. But I also think to myself, I don't think we're entitled to it this season. I don't think.
No, I'd agree with you. I don't think we've been good enough to get European football. And it's such a weird one as well. And I didn't find out until a couple of weeks that the Conference League isn't even a major trophy. I was sitting there doing some research on it, and I was thinking, oh, God, West Ham going to win a trophy, blah, 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 all of this. And then my mate told me it's not actually a major trophy. So, that brightened my spirits a bit more, and it sort of made me think, oh, okay, I'm not too bothered if we don't get it then. But regardless, even if we'd won on Saturday and we win on Sunday and we'd got Europa League, I think we'd have been very, very lucky to do that, considering how poor we've been. And I know there's been games this season, particularly under Conte, where we've won and haven't played very well. And then it sort of just faded out as we've sort of got to the latter stages, and we've been playing poor and picking up poor results, especially away from home. That form away from home is atrocious, and it's not worthy of a traditional top 6 or top 7 finish. I think 8th is fair. Can't complain if Brentford finish above us either, because they outplayed us, particularly in the second half, and they've had an excellent season as well. So I am really sorry, by the way. And I'm entirely aware I'm being very negative tonight. But as you can probably tell, my enthusiasm towards the club at the moment is just at such a low, and I will reset over the summer, and I'm sure I'll come back onto the podcast next season and hopefully be a bit more cheerful, at least at the beginning. But yeah, Europe's just a bit of a distant dream, I think, at this point, and I think it's going to take a miracle for us to get in there.
And I also think, in a sense, that we'd be so thin on the ground as well. We found it this year a bit of a struggle, but imagine Wes next season when we try and overhaul all these players and get new players in. I just think it's going to be a very big ask for multiple games a week, and then obviously the Prem and obviously at the weekend.
Yeah, true. Although I think for a club like Tottenham, they need European football to attract a certain level of player, because we can't do what there's probably 3 teams. I think I said this to you, Connor, and Hollie on Saturday when we went up after the game. There's probably 3 clubs you could argue in the league that can almost overpay if they don't get in Europe, and that is City, United, and Chelsea, because they have that bigger financial power to do it. I think Tottenham, Liverpool, and Arsenal are a bit more, I wouldn't say strategic, and I wouldn't say stingy either, but they haven't really got that functionality within their football clubs that they can, overpay somebody to come and sign for them. Like we can't go in for, say, for example, Maddison without really European football, because I know Leicester are probably going down, but he could have a pick of, a few other clubs. So if we are in for Maddison, we've then got to go, right, well, we're probably going to have to pay you a little bit more because, the European football thing and stuff like that. Like, we haven't got Europe. So to compensate for that, here's an extra, 30, 40 grand a week just on top of what you're earning already. So I think Europe for the football club, obviously, Levy will love it because it's a little bit of extra revenue. However big or small that might be, he sees it as extra revenue. But I think it's almost like the club needs it to almost still be, I wouldn't say relevant, but still be perceived to be, in the European circles, if you like, whether that is Conference League, Europa League, or Champions League. But yeah, I think we could do a lot worse than potentially not get the Conference League. I think you look at West Ham over the last couple of years, obviously their Europa League run was fantastic. Their Conference League run has been nigh on perfect. I know their Premier League form has suffered off the back of it, but you speak to any West Ham fan and it'll be a case of, well, I don't care where we finish, if we could finish 17th, but listen, we're in a European final at the end of the day, and those that everybody will remember 2019 and how that made them feel. Granted, it's not the big one, but to be in a European final, regardless of the competition, it's hard to do. And actually, if we got there, listen, get me on the plane, man. Get me there. I think it's in Dublin as well or something. Listen, I'm there, man. Get me there. I'll be there. Ticket or no ticket, I'm there. But I think as well, it will give us something to cling on to as fans. And I think that's why Mourinho, in particular, is very, very clever in the sense that when he's in England, he always goes for the League Cup. Always goes for the League Cup. Why? Because if he gets that one over the line, the players get that taste and that feel of winning something, and it propels them onto the next one. You look at what he's done with Roma, won the Conference League last year. They're now in the Europa League final. So he's worked it. He realises that, okay, this Roma team isn't good enough to potentially get in the Champions League and compete, with the bigger teams in Italy. So he's done it a different way. And it's like, right, win the Conference League and get me into Europa League. If I win the Europa League, I'm now in the Champions League where I need to be and where this club feels like they need to be as well. So, I think it's a competition that if we took seriously, why can't we go and win it? And I think that would keep us as fans happy because we'll see a trophy. I know Mitch has said it's not a major one, but listen, we're counting it. And, other clubs count the Community Shield, so why can't we count the Conference League?
No, I suppose so. I just think for me, I think we've gone too far now with everything that's gone on. And I just feel like dropping out of Europe. Yeah, I get it. It will attract players. And yes, wages could be cheaper. But for me, I just want to drop out of everything and just work on domestic. I mean, Connor, I know you said you want to be in Europe. And I promise this is the last little stint. So if it was the case to go to the Conference League, are you snapping it up? Are you taking it?
Yeah, I am, without a doubt. Again, I know it's not, like Mitch said, okay, it might not be a major trophy, but like Wes said, it's a trophy. I actually think it's our level. Legit, I genuinely think it's our level. I think we we as fans, because we've had Champions League football, because we've, we used to drop out the Champions League sometimes and go to Europa League, because we've had that, we seem to think that we are a team that's either Champions League, maybe Europa League, or that's it. I genuinely think it's our level. I think that is, and we've never taken it seriously. Like, when we got knocked out, okay, because of COVID, because of the whole Ren thing, again, Spursy, very us. That's on us. It's on us. It's infuriating, but we are so, and I think it's spread to the fans a little bit as well. I think as players, they are so complacent in it. They do not give it the respect it deserves, like West Ham have. Like Wes said, it means absolute world to those fans. It would mean the world to us, I think, if we made a final. And I think a lot of the fans do think that because it's a new competition, and there are new top competitions that come out all the time. Someone mentioned it on Saturday about the Nations League. If England won the Nations League, you wouldn't be losing it, like going crazy.
That was
but
Shay.
at the same time, it's a trophy. It's something, So, yeah, and as Wes says as well, it breeds that winning mentality. He's got it spot on with Mourinho there. They've gone and won the Conference League. They've gone and made the Europa League final. It breeds that, and we need something. And I think that is a massive winning point, not just for the players, but it is a pull for players as well. It is players that are maybe thinking of if Brentford get it or Villa get it, they might think, oh, well, Tottenham are in Europa League, so I'll go there. I know we've got a little bit more money, but we need to have a pull, because right now we haven't got much to pull on. And you're very right what you and Mitch said. Arguably, we don't deserve it, but if we get it, then do we deserve it? And yeah, no, I want it. I do want it, because I think it brings a lot more good than not. And if we aren't going to take it seriously, then let the young players play. Offer something, take something good from it, because a lot of people think if we don't have European football, we're going to go and do an Arsenal, we're going to go and have a great season. But I genuinely don't think that us being out of Europe will bring much more benefit than being in it personally,
No, that is fair enough. And don't get me wrong, look, I had my view, you've had your views, and I can see the factors in both of them that are like, okay, hang on a minute. I can see the positives, I can see the negatives. So it is going to be difficult. It's just whether we can actually manage to achieve it at the weekend. But we'll have to wait and see. Like I say, I'm just, like all of us, I think at the moment, I'm just very glad that the last game is nearly here, finally. We can all have a little bit of a break. But I tell you what, it's been another good therapy session tonight. I think we've needed it. So we'll go around the room and see where everybody can find ourselves. Now, look, Wes, I'm going to come to you first, because I know you've got your script ready, so I'm ready for it. Go on, Wes.
Right.
Part all the time.
Right. Are we ready, boys and girls, ladies and gents? Here we go. Right. Twitter @Wezo10, unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account. I don't really tend to tweet too much on there. I'll end up getting suspended or something. So I kind of stay out of it, but I am on there. Like I say, unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account, the greatest of all time, as I mentioned earlier. Wezo32 on Instagram, usually at Tottenham game is probably all I post about these days. So yeah, Wezo32 on Instagram. I have my own football podcast, which has made a relatively, relative comeback in recent weeks and months. Dublin 32 Football Podcast for that on YouTube, usually on a Sunday at about 6:30. And then I run my own football coaching business as well in Milton Keynes, helping and developing young boys and girls for the area. So it's Kickoff Football Academy on Facebook, Co4MK on Instagram and TikTok, and Kickoff Academy Football Academy on YouTube as well. I think, Hollie, that is it. That's a wrap.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
I think I nailed it.
Oh, I love you, Wes, man. And also joining us tonight, thank you again for joining us, and that is Mitch. Thank you again, my friend. Like I say, hopefully we'll be a bit more happier next season.
Oh yeah, I hope so. Oh God, honestly, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? But yeah, my list's not as long as Wes's for where you can find me. It's just mainly on Twitter @Mitch_Fretton, and doing regular articles for Live Score as well. For those of you that have heard of them and have the app, I have a piece tomorrow coming out on how Spurs can rebuild throughout the summer. And today we have a little bit of Arne Slot prop on the app and on the Twitter feed over there, so you can check them out if you fancy a bit of a read up on what he's like. And again, tomorrow for what I think we need to do in the summer to be a bit more competitive next season.
I like it. Thank you, Mitch. I'll make sure I check that out. I need to check out some slot machine action, I think. And also, Connor, thanks again for joining me. Where can everybody find you doing your thing?
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Not as long as Wes's, but I love it every time. Not as exciting as Mitch's with the slot stuff, but The slot and the live score stuff, brilliant. I'm mainly CC's covering on everything: Twitter, YouTube, maybe slightly different YouTube. Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all of them. You'll know me. I rant a lot. I do a lot of rant videos. I do match going videos. I do some really awful parodies that people somehow seem to enjoy, but I'm losing the plot. And you come say hello if not. But the main thing is that you keep backing Hollie and you keep making this bigger and better, because next season it's going to be bigger and better because we're going to have more to celebrate. So make sure to keep doing that. And as I say, always a pleasure to be on.
No, thank you. And like I say, thank you to you guys and to everybody that's been in the chat tonight. There is only one more Hollie's Hotspurs live. Thank God that I have to talk about Tottenham for a little while. There will be some transfer videos over the summer, but at least I don't have to dissect any more games. But like I say, thank you to everybody that's tuned in tonight, that is rewatching, that's going back to watch. Make sure you tune in next week, same time, same place, for the last one of the season. But until next time, come on you Spurs.